Lin Hao, you sour book student, are you also worthy of this scattered calligraphy? Look at your messy stuff, even my servants don't care about it. A young man in a long robe stood in front of Lin Hao's trousers, laughing with his face, and a few dog legs beside him laughed, attracting a bunch of passers-by around him to watch it. Lin Hao lowered his head, the hair in his hand shook slightly, and the ink dripped on the paper, suddenly turning black. He clenched his teeth and raised his head to look at the person in front of him. This guy is named Lin Hao, who is the eldest son of the Li family in the city. He relies on his family's authority and power, so he has never bullied others in daily life. Today's fault is probably because I am not surprised by myself and deliberately find fault. Li Xiaowei, don't look at it if you think you are not allowed. You are so weak that you can't stop your way. Lin Hao's voice was low and he was pressing as much as possible. He knew that he had no good results with such a person. After all, he was just a book student who relied on selling calligraphy and writing to make a living. Where did he have the confidence in the noble's challenge? Yeah, dare you still speak up? Li Hao sneered, raised his feet and kicked over the ink on Lin Hao's slap. The ink was covered with all the ground, and several written words instantly turned into a group of waste papers. I just think you are unhappy today. Why are you so worried? Don't accept it. You have the ability to hit me. The crowd around us made a low voice. Some sympathized with Lin Hao, and some looked at him coldly. It was common for the nobles to bully civilians in this small town. Who dares to say a word? Lin Hao clenched his fists tightly, and his nails almost pinched into his flesh. He wanted to fight back, but when he thought of his mother who was still waiting for Xiao's rooster at home, he could only hold it back. He lowered his waist and silently cleaned up the slaughter on the ground, and his heart seemed to be burning with fire. Waste is waste, you should live in this broken place. Li Hao said this and left with several followers, leaving Lin Hao in place, full of wolves. When the crowd dispersed, Lin Hao sat behind the silly, staring at the trampled characters on the ground. His eyes gradually became cold. He was unwilling to accept that he was trampled under his feet and could not lift his head. He wants to change and make these people who look down on him regret it. At this moment, a wind blew over, and in the pile of old books beside the sack, a book that was broken to a distance was blown open, revealing the yellow page inside. Lin Hao lifted up his hand and wanted to throw it away, but when he opened it, he was stunned. This book has no name or author, and the things written in it are even more strange. What is pop music spreading the world? What is youth culture changes the era? And there is even a song's lyrics, with the title Burning Youth. Lin Hao became more and more immersed in his eyes, and his heartbeat inexplicably accelerated. He has never heard of these words, but there is an indescribable attraction, as if telling him that this is the direction of the future. What is this? Lin Hao murmured, and a thought suddenly flashed in his brain. If what this book says is true, can I use these future things to change my current fate? Without thinking too much, he hid in his old hut at home that night and studied the song Burning Youth. The lyrics are simple and direct, full of passionate and unacceptable spirit. Although the melody only has a few simple notes, it can be hummed and makes people's blood boil. Lin Hao became more and more excited the more he sang, and he felt that this was his own chance. Early the next morning, Lin Hao no longer went to sell calligraphy, but stood in the center of the most popular market in the market with an old acoustic guitar. This guitar was bought from the old market. It was usually only used for self-entertainment, and today it became his weapon. Dear brothers and sisters, today I will sing a song for you. I will not be able to leave after listening. Lin Hao shouted at the top of his voice, attracting the curious eyes of many passers-by. He took a deep breath, swayed the strings, and began to sing. Youth is not convinced, the flames are in the heart, smashing this iron candle and breaking this shackle. Don't ignore anyone who looks down on it, we are just storms, burning, burning, let the world hear it. The singing is rough and powerful, and it brings an unyielding sway, instantly attracting people around. The mother who was selling vegetables in the market stopped and shouted. The young man carrying the goods put down his stool, and even the students from the school who passed by were surrounded, and their eyes lit up after hearing. What song is this? Why is it so good?" A young man couldn't help but shout, and several people next to him followed him with a look of excitement. Lin Hao became more and more devoted as he sang, and his voice was almost shouting, but he didn't feel tired, but instead had an unprecedented speed. When the last sound fell, a hot sound broke out on the square, and some even shouted, "Another song! Another song!" Lin Hao grinned, wiped his sweat, and was about to sing it again, but he heard a sneer coming from nowhere. "Humph, a group of local buns who have never seen the world can be called a song. I really don't know how to say it." It was Li Hao who spoke, who stood outside the crowd with several followers, full of disdain. Lin Hao's face darkened, he held the guitar tightly, and looked at Li Hao. "Young Master Li, it's not up to you to say whether you are rough or vulgar. Just like everyone likes it. If you don't listen, go far away and don't hurt everyone's happiness." "You!" Li Hao didn't expect Lin Hao to dare to attack everyone, and his face was so angry that he wanted to get angry, but was pulled by a follower on his side and said in a low voice, "Xiao, this guy is very popular now, so I'm afraid we won't be able to beat him." Li Hao snorted coldly and glared at Lin Hao. "Okay, you're leaving today, let's take a look." After saying that, he turned around and left without even looking back. When the crowd around saw Li Hao eating the phone, they burst out with a bigger shout, and someone shouted directly, "Lin Hao, awesome! I've given us the face." Lin Hao heard these sounds, and the group in his heart was even more intense. He knew that this was just the beginning. He wanted to use his songs to let more people hear them, and let those nobles know that even those who are greedy can turn over. That night, Lin Hao's singing spread throughout the streets and alleys of the small town. Young people gathered together and hummed Burning Youth repeatedly. Many people even came to find Lin Hao, wanting to learn this song. Lin Hao looked at these hot and bloody faces and suddenly felt that he could really change something. But the good times didn't last long. On the morning of the third day, Lin Hao arrived at the market and was trapped by several men in black. The man in the head had no expression on his face and spoke coldly, "Lin Hao, someone asked me to bring you a sentence. Don't sing your broken song again, otherwise you will be nice." Lin Hao had a snake, and the first person he thought of was Li Hao. But he didn't open his mouth yet, and suddenly a stern figure appeared beside him, pushing the men in black off. "Who dares to urge my brother? Are you looking for death?" The person coming was Lin Hao's brother Zhang Jia, who was 1.9 meters tall, full of muscles, standing there like a hill, and his air directly suppressed the other party. The man in black in the head changed his face and said in a low voice, "We are just talking, no other meaning. Don't move this brother. Travels also choose a good place, don't wander in front of my brother. Scroll." Zhang Zi stared at the eyes, his voice was low, and he was so scared that several people hurriedly retreated and walked away in shame. Lin Hao looked at Zhang Jia and couldn't help laughing. "I'm thankful, I'll let you help me wipe my butt again. Stop talking, who dares to bully you? I, Zhang Ji, will not answer the first one." Zhang Ji patted Lin Hao's shoulder and grinned, "But your song is really awesome. I wanted to beat someone after listening to it yesterday, haha." "Then sing, aren't we afraid of them?" Lin Hao pointed his head, and he felt a little uneasy. He knew that the people behind these men in black were probably not just small characters like Li Hao. Sure enough, it took a long time before the city was filled with voices, saying that the old-fashioned boss Xiao Wenqing heard about Lin Hao, thinking that his songs were injuring the customs, and he wanted to send someone to teach him well. Who is Xiao Wenqing? That was the top tycoon in the cultural circle of the small town. He controlled all the books and floors, and even the nobles had to give him face. If he had a fight, Lin Hao knew that he might not have seen such a small trick. But he was not afraid, on the contrary, a heart of struggle was still ignited. "Since you want to press me, I insist on singing, until you have to listen, and the whole town stands next to me." In the evening of that day, Lin Hao stood on the square again. This time there were more people, which almost made the square leak. He picked up the guitar and rushed into the crowd and shouted, "Brothers and sisters, we still sing today, and no one can stop our voices. Come on, let's burn with me." The crowd was boiling in an instant, and countless voices sang with Lin Hao, and the air was so simple that it was about to overturn the sky. Lin Hao looked at this scene and smiled at the corner of his mouth. He knew that the real battle had just begun. The crowd on the venue was still singing loudly, and the sound was like waves, making the entire small town feel hot and bloody. Lin Hao stood in the middle of the crowd. The broken guitar in his hand was like a burnt iron, and shaking every string seemed to ignite a fire. He sang so hard that he sweated heavily and his voice was getting deeper, but the sensation in his heart was getting stronger and stronger. He knew that this was not just a song, it was his first roar to those who looked down on him. After singing the last sentence, Lin Hao gasped and shouted at the crowd, "Brothers and sisters, who can't help but our voices. Tomorrow is coming, let's continue." The crowd burst into thunderous shouts, and someone jumped up and shouted at the fist, "Lin Hao, you're good at it. Let's follow you." The scene was like a small rebellion. But at this moment, a rapid sound of footsteps came from afar, and dozens of people wearing uniform gray robes rushed over from the side of the square, holding wooden sticks in their hands and were full of cruelty. The middle-aged man in the head had a goat beard, his eyes were as delicate as barbarians, and he felt a sense of coldness when he swept through the crowd. "Who is Lin Hao? Stand out." The goat beard's voice was not loud, but it had an unquestionable smell. Lin Hao glanced at the head, put down his guitar, walked forward a few steps, and stood in front of the crowd. "I am Lin Hao, what's the matter with me?" The goat smiled coldly and looked at Lin Hao up and down, as if he was looking at something worthless. "I heard that you sing some chaotic songs here, which made people feel uneasy. Zhao Lao is instructed that these unhealthy things must be banned. From today on, your sex will not be allowed to sing again, nor will your songs be sang again, otherwise, the consequences will be borne." There was a low voice in the crowd, and some people muttered in a low voice, "Old Zhao? It's that Zhao Wenjing. The boss of the cultural circle, who dares not listen to him, can directly make people disappear." Some people couldn't help but feel dissatisfied. "What are you not to sing? This song is so good, what's up to him?" Lin Hao heard these comments and sneered in his heart. He had long guessed that Zhao Wenjing would not sit idly. This old man controlled the bookstore and floor in the small town, and had to use his hands on any lyrics and songs. Now he had created such a big and tranquil move, and he knew it was a challenge to him. However, Lin Hao didn't plan to be so low-headed. "Zhao Lao's order? Sorry, I don't know anything about it and don't understand what evil and evil is." Lin Hao's words were calm, but everyone could hear the sarcasm in his words. "Everyone likes to listen to my songs. This is everyone's business. What's the relationship with others? If you want to ban it, you have to give it a lecture, right?" The goat's bearded face darkened, and it was obvious that Lin Hao dared to be full of mouth. He snorted coldly and snatched his hands. Several men in gray robes stood up from behind and put up the wooden stick in his hand, as if he wanted to activate it at any time. "Say it. My words are saying it." The goat gritted his teeth and said fiercely, "If you miss it, believe it or not, I will lose your life." The atmosphere in the crowd suddenly became tight, and some people were afraid to retreat, but more young people stood up and stood in front of Lin Hao, and they were dissatisfied with their faces. "What are you doing? What's wrong with Lin Hao singing? Isn't it just listening to a song? You're too careful." Seeing that both sides were about to rise, a roar suddenly came from the side, "Who dares to move my brother? Try it." Zhang Qiong's big head slammed out from behind the crowd, stepped 2 steps to Lin Hao's body, and held his chest with both hands, stared at the goat beards helping others, and scattered a sense of ruthlessness. Just looking at his figure, several people on the other side couldn't help but take a step back. The goat narrowed his eyes and glanced at Zhang Xia, which was obviously a little jealous. He said in a low voice, "Okay, there are many people today, and I won't meet you as much as you like. But Lin Hao, I warn you, this matter is not over. Within 3 days, put away your broken things, otherwise, After saying that, he swung his hand and turned around with the person, without even returning. When the crowd saw them leaving, they were relaxed. Someone patted his chest and said, "I'm scared to death. I thought I was going to fight." Some young people rushed to Lin Hao and shouted, "Lin Hao, don't be afraid, we support you. If they dare to come, we will fight with them." Lin Hao grinned and bowed to everyone. "Thank you, brothers and sisters. If they come again, we are not afraid. We still sing this song, and no one can hold on." After speaking, he picked up the guitar again and sang Burning Youth with everyone, and the air was so simple that it would overturn the sky. However, when Lin Hao returned home at night, he still felt heavy in his heart. He knew that a big shot like Zhao Wenjing could not just give up on a few words. The goat beard didn't take action today, and he might bring more people to smash the field tomorrow. He sat in front of the broken wooden table, flipped through the mysterious ancient book, and turned wildly in his brain, trying to find a solution. At this moment, the door squeaked and an old man in a coarse cloth walked in. This person is Mr. Su. Mr. Chiming, who was a child when Lin Hao was young. He is now living outside the city and does not show up very well. However, every time Lin Hao encounters trouble, Mr. Su can always give me some key suggestions. "Boy, did you hear that you got angry at Zhao Wenqing again today?" As soon as Mr. Su entered the door, he opened his mouth with a smile, sat next to Lin Hao, picked up the ancient book on the table and flipped through several pages. Lin Hao slapped his head and smiled bitterly. "Old Mr. Su, why is your news so clear? You will know just after I finish it here. The small town is such a big place. Who can hold me back?" Mr. Su put down his book and his eyes became serious. However, Zhao Wenqing is not easy to deal with. He is in the cultural circle. Although your song is innovative, if you don't have a long way to do it, he would have been punished to death. Lin Hao pointed out the head, told Mr. Su today, and pointed to the ancient book and asked, "Mr. Su, there are many strange things in this book, and I think it can be used to deal with Zhao Wenqing. But it's not enough to rely on singing alone. What's your idea?" Mr. Su touched his chin, pondered for a while, and then said, "Singing is the first step, which can gather people's hearts, but if you really want to sway the foundation of the purity of Zhao, you have to let more people accept your new ideas. Aren't you any story and novel points in your book? We might as well take these out and write them into a vocabulary for young people to read. Songs can stimulate blood, stories can be deeply rooted in people's hearts, and walk on two legs, and the effect will be doubled." Lin Hao's eyes lit up, and he opened the ancient book and found a page of content written by short stories, which contained a story about a small person from the bottom level who fought unyieldingly and finally defeated the noble clan. Lin Hao became more and more excited the more he watched it. Isn't this his own copy? If this story is written, it will definitely make more people feel the same. Old Mr. Su, your idea is great. I will follow this article, find someone to copy a few copies after writing, and put them in the market for free to see what everyone reacts. Lin Hao slapped the table, Lima picked up the ink and started writing in his head. In the next few days, Lin Hao sang in the square during the day and hid at home to write stories at night. Mr. Su occasionally pointed out a few sentences to help him change the story to make it more attractive. In less than 3 days, a short story called The Blade of Indomitable was written. The protagonist in the story was Adeo. He was born in Nahan and was bullied by the noble clan. He relied on his unconvinced spirit to climb to a high position step by step, and finally stepped on those who looked down on him. When Lin Hao wrote, his brain was full of his experiences during this period. The flames erupted to the tip of his pen, and his writing was particularly erect. After the story was written, Lin Hao found a few young people to copy it, and then took advantage of the hot market to passers-by and specially selected a few young men with loud voices to read it out loud on the market. Adeo bit his teeth tightly, holding the broken knife, and shouted at the eldest son of the noble clan, "You look down on me, today I will let you see who is the real mud that cannot be supported on the wall." A young man stood in the middle of the building, and his voice was filled with joy. More and more people around him gathered, and his eyes were straightened. Why is this story so bad? Adeo, like me, is bullied every day, but he can turn over, why can't we do it? After hearing this, a young man with a strong salesman couldn't help but pat his thighs. Several people next to him also pointed, his face full of excitement. the effect of the book is better than Lin Hao thought. In just a few days, the Blade of Indomitable spread throughout the town. Young people gathered together to discuss Adeo's affairs. Some even learned the lyrics in the story, shouting "You can turn over even if you are in the mud." Lin Hao's songs fermented together with the story, bringing the atmosphere of the entire small town. More and more people began to stand by him, and the market was filled with people every day, waiting to listen to new songs and read new stories. But it didn't take long for a good life, and Zhao Wenjing finally couldn't sit still. One evening, Lin Hao finished his story in the venue and was about to collect the food, when a group of people suddenly rushed over from a distance, with 50 or 60 numbers, holding a stick and an iron fork in his hand, and was swollen. The headline is still the goat beard, and the face is more difficult to see than last time. "Lin Hao, you can't run away this time. Old Zhao has an order, and today I smashed your child and burned all your broken books and songs." The goat said a beard, and the people behind him rushed up. The crowd on the field was always in a row. Some people screamed and ran away, while some refused to leave and stood in front of Lin Hao. "Iron, here!" Lin Hao shouted, and Zhang Zilima came out from the side, pressed him in front, and waved his hands, directly knocking down the two gray-robed men who were pushing up, as powerful as a bull. "Who dares to urge my brother? Please do this first." Zhang Zi roared, and was so scared that he walked a few people in front of him, but the goat sneered and shouted with his hands, "There are so many people, what are you afraid of? I'll give it to me. I must wipe out this kid today." For a while, a group formed on the square. Zhang Zi and a person were in front, like an iron tower, holding more than 10 people, but there were too many people on the other side, which was a bit difficult. Lin Hao was anxious when he saw this, and suddenly a point in his brain flashed through an ancient book. He shouted, "Brothers, don't let them smash our plate. When we sing, our voices are harder than their sticks." After speaking, he grabbed the guitar and sang Burning Youth with his voice. The young people around him heard the song, and Lima sang it with him. The sound became louder and louder, and his breath directly suppressed the other party's shouts. The men in gray robe were a little confused by this silence, and their pace slowed down. Zhang Qiong took advantage of the opportunity to knock down a few more times and kept the scene stable. Finally, the goat was unable to get the cheaper, so he gritted his teeth and said, "Lin Hao, this is not over. Lao Zhao won't let you go." Then he retreated in disgrace. After repelling this helper, a burst of cry broke out on the scene. Zhang Hai wiped his sweat, and Lin Hao grinned, "Brother, I just sang so hard that I just sang. Even I want to beat up a few more." Lin Hao also smiled, but he was not relaxed. He knew that this battle was won today, but Zhao Wenjing would definitely not be able to stop like this. That night, he flipped through ancient books and found a page of content written by Cultural Impact, which mentioned a more powerful form of work called comics. The book says that this kind of combination of pictures can instantly capture the young people's eyes and spread faster than the original. Comics? Can this thing work? Lin Hao murmured, and the counting in his brain was already started. He decided to try it out, and painted the story of the Blade of Indomitable into a comic, and added a simple dialogue, and found someone to engrave and print it in the market to see what the effect was. At the same time, far away in Zhaofu, east of the small town, Zhao Wenjing sat in the book room, listening to the goat's beard's comments, and her face was so dark that it could drip out of ink. He slapped the table and said angrily, "A sour book student dares to fight me? Tell the people below and increase their strength. I want to see if he can help Lin Hao for several days." After saying that, he sneered, and a vicious look flashed in his eyes. The war has finally started to burn. The night was deep, and in the Zhaofu bookstore east of the small town, fire was swaying, reflecting the clear face. He sat in the Grandmaster's chair, tapping his fingers lightly on the table, and listening to the goat beard's low voice to report his failure today, his eyebrows getting tighter and tighter. Finally, he slapped the table. His voice was low and he was angry, "A bunch of waste. Even the hairy boy can't handle it, and you're trying to destroy my face." The goat beard lowered, and cold sweat broke out on his head. He said carefully, "There is a person named Zhang Qiao around Lin Hao, who is as powerful as a cow. We have too many people, but we have not paid any price. Also, more and more people are coming to pursue him, and the movements on the market are too strong. If you come, you may arouse public grievances. People's grievance? Zhao Wenqing sneered, his eyes as sharp as a knife. What do I care about public grievances? Who dares to fight me in this small town? Lin Hao is just a clown who wants to make a comeback with a few broken songs and several broken stories. To be a dream. He stood up, paced back in the book room with his hands behind his back, and counted on his brain. Since it's hard, then come and be soft. Zhao Wenqing suddenly stopped walking, and a cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. I don't believe that Lin Hao can be smart. Go and find a few verbal and spread the news. Just say that Lin Hao is a person with misbehavior. That broken book was stolen. The songs and stories he sang were all cheating, and he was playing with fools. Find a few gentlemen from the Book Academy, and openly criticizing him for being a bad thing in a weak young man's thoughts, so that everyone knows that standing by him is asking for trouble. The goat's bearded eyes lit up, and he kept busy. Old man is so good. He makes his reputation bad. See how he will continue singing. I will make arrangements here to ensure that within 3 days, the whole town will treat him as a street rat. Zhao Wenqing snatched his hand and signaled him to go down to do the work. Then he sat back on the chair, picked up the teacup, and looked proud in his eyes. He didn't believe that a sour book student could win the old fox in his cultural circle. As long as his reputation faded, even if Lin Hao was hit by an iron, he would have to collapse. At the same time, Lin Hao's hut was dim and yellow. He was lying on the broken wooden table, sweating heavily with his charcoal paint. What he had just painted was a few comic drafts, and the simple lines outlined the image of Adeo and the blade of Indomitable. Although the paintings are not detailed, each screen is filled with a hot blood. The dialogue beside it is even more straightforward and ignited, as if it can directly penetrate the hearts of young people. Is this thing really okay? Lin Hao wiped his sweat and muttered, and there was still some secret in his brain. The manga is very magical in the ancient book, but he has never seen the real effect and always feels a little bit. But, don't worry about him, try it and never eat it. The door opened with a creaking sound, and old Su walked in with a cane, and saw the draft on the table at a glance. He looked over and couldn't help but point, "Boy, your new style is good. The picture is coming, and the comparison book is still straightforward, and young people will definitely like it. Be nervous and have more pictures, find someone to engrave it out, don't wait for Zhao Wenqing to smash the field." Lin Hao grinned and pointed, "Old Su, don't worry, I have to stay up all night tonight. I'll be sent to the market early tomorrow morning to see what everyone's reaction." As he said, he buried his head and started painting, his brain full of pictures of Adeo slashing over the precious tribe with one knife, and his pen became more and more smooth. But at this moment, a sudden loud knock on the door came from outside the door, and Zhang Qiong's loud voice roared directly, "Haozi, open the door. If you have something to tell you, it's very important." Lin Hao was stunned, put down his pen and opened the door, and saw Zhang Qia standing anxiously at the door with his face, sweat beads hanging on his head. "Iron, what's wrong? It's midnight, what's so urgent?" Zhang Qia gasped and said in a low voice, "I just came back from the market and heard a few people discussing you, saying that there is something wrong with your character, the books are stolen, the songs and stories are cheating people, and fooling everyone to be fooled. He also said that a gentleman from the bookstore wanted to publicly warn you, saying that your things harm people, so that everyone will not mess with you." After Lin Hao finished listening, his face instantly sank. His brain was flying fast, and Lima guessed that it must be Zhao Wenqing's trick behind his back. If you are so hard that you are soft, you want to use a comment to kill him. This old fox is indeed poisonous. But Lin Hao was not panicked, but instead a fire ignited. He sneered, "Wanna mess with me? Okay, I want to see who can laugh to the end." When Mr. Su heard this, he walked out of the house and narrowed his eyes and said, "Boy, this is Zhao Wenqing's habit of using means. First, make your reputation smell bad, and then slowly deal with you. However, when you discuss this, you can come and go quickly. As long as you have real things to capture people's hearts, these ghosts will not stand. Your comics are tight, and you can also write a bigger work and directly block the help of the teacher's mouth. Lin Hao pointed his head, and suddenly flashed through an even more explosive point in the ancient book, a work of historical poetry. The book says that this long masterpiece can shock people and even change the value of an era. He gritted his teeth and said, "Old Sue, I have an idea, write a big story, and tell us how young people on this land are directly hitting the old people from being forced to turning over. But, it takes time to do this, what should I do in front of me?" Old Sue touched his chin, pondered for a while, and then said, "The discussion is simple. You release the comic tomorrow, calm the young people first, and then when the crowd returns to the words, take out the truth and let everyone see, you Lin Hao is not talking nonsense. When your big work comes out, you will directly sway the foundation of Zhao Wenling." After Lin Hao finished hearing this, his eyes lit up and he made a decision. "That's it. Iron, you can help me keep an eye on it tomorrow. If someone is worried, just stop. Mr. Su, I will prepare now. The market will be divided tomorrow." The next morning, the market was in a head-on manner. Lin Hao came to the market with dozens of comics just printed. He found a few young guys to help him release them. He shouted loudly, "Brothers and sisters, come and see the new things. The comics of the Blade of Indomitable are all pictures, and I have never heard of the story. I can get it for free, don't miss it." The crowd crept over, and the young man who had taken the comic looked at the picture, his eyes straightened. "What's this? Why are the people in the picture living like this? This lyrics are so damn hot." A young man flipped through the comics and couldn't help shouting. Several people next to him also followed him, and the atmosphere became hot in an instant. But at this moment, several middle-aged men in long robes came in from the crowd, and the head was full of disdain and said loudly, "Humph, Lin Hao, you are making these messy things to cheat people. Don't believe that this kid is not good at conduct, and he has stolen all of his broken things, and he is dedicated to fooling you all those you have no idea. The gentleman from our bookstore said that this kind of thing is a bad habit, and his brain will be damaged if you see too much." As soon as this happened, the crowd around him had been discussing the matter. Some people began to hesitate, and some young people even muttered in a low voice, "Is there really a problem, right? I heard that his book is not right." The atmosphere was about to be biased towards the other party. Lin Hao saw this, sneered, stood in the middle of the crowd, and said loudly, "Brothers and sisters, their mouths are on others. What do they say about them? But what's the truth? Are there no one in their hearts? Did my book steal? Are my songs and stories cheating? You listened and read them, and you won't be able to judge them? These people just came out and couldn't come up with a little evidence. What would you let them believe them or not?" He said. He took out the old book from it, lifted it up, and continued, "I told you clearly that I have never hidden anything in it. Everyone wants to read it and come to me at any time. As for the bad habits? We young people want to turn over and have their own voices. Why do we get bad habits? Who is afraid that we will stand up and insist on squeaking us, and we have no idea what to say?" This speech was so loud that when the young people heard it, Lima exploded and someone shouted directly, "Yes. Lin Hao said it right, why don't we have our own ideas? These old guys just don't treat us." Some young man was lying on the comics and said loudly, "How come this story hurts the vulgarity? It's just that he doesn't agree with it, but that he talks about the blood of our bottom-level people. Who knows it?" The men in long robe did not expect that Lin Hao would react and his face became difficult to look. The person in the lead wanted to say something else. He was pulled by a companion next to him and said in a low voice, "Don't force it, everyone's hearts are on his side, and it will be useless to say it." In the end, they left with dusty faces, and they didn't dare to go back. The crowd saw this and burst into shouts. Zhang Qi stood beside Lin Hao, patted his shoulder and laughed, "Howsy, you're fucking beautifully. This guy who is so mean to be so mean, haha." Lin Hao grinned, but he knew in his heart that this was just a small victory. Zhao Wenqing's methods have not been completed yet. Although this has been discussed for a while, the greater trouble must be at the end. He said to Zhang Cheng in a low voice, Jizi, I'll help me keep an eye on the next few days. Zhao Wenqing won't let it go. I have to seize the time, make that big work, and give him a ruthless one. In the next few days, Lin Hao spent the day painting and singing in the public hall, calming the hearts of young people, hiding at home at night, and starting to write that historical work. He named this work The Legend of the Condor Heroes, which tells the story of how the younger generation in the world rose under the pressure of culture and smashed the old order. Every chapter is written with a heated and blood-boiling, as if it has burned the fire in Lin Hao's heart into the paper. At the same time, Zhao Wenjing's actions did not stop. He saw that the attack was useless, so he simply joined forces with several old-fashioned bosses to prepare for a bigger slander. They secretly bought a group of people, intending to create a mess when Lin Hao opens his next public event, and then instigate Lin Hao to incite violence, and then use the name of endangering public security to make him slander and even go to prison. That night, Lin Hao just finished the first volume of The Legend of the Yuan Dynasty. Old Su came to the hut and said with a serious face, Boy, I heard the sound. Zhao Wenqing joined forces with several veterans, intending to make trouble during your next party meeting and give you a big hat. You have to be careful and don't fall into their trap. After Lin Hao finished listening, his eyebrows roared, but he immediately sneered, Want to play with Ian? Okay, I will play with them. Mr. Su, I will go as usual tomorrow, so I will open the first volume of Storm Yuan to see how they take it. The next day, there were crowds of people on the building. Lin Hao stood in the center, holding the manuscript he had just written in his hand. He was about to open his mouth when a sensation came from a distance. Several dozen people in torn clothes rushed into the crowd, holding sticks in their hands, smashing them to everyone, and shouting in their mouths, Lin Hao let us fuck us. He said he was going to smash the old force. We heard him, thrust. The steady marathon was formed in a group, some people screamed and ran away, some were knocked to the ground, and the scene was in chaos. Lin Hao knew at a glance that this was Zhao Wenjing's defeat. He shouted, Brothers and sisters, don't panic. Someone is deliberately making trouble, don't be fooled. At the same time, Zhang Ji rushed out with a few young guys, and held the troubled people down and controlled the scene. Say, who instructs you to come? Zhang Qi grabbed the leader of a pervert, his voice was shocking. The man shivered and finally asked, It's the people from Zhao Mansion who gave us silver to let us come and make trouble, saying that we'll push things to Lin Hao. As soon as this happened, the crowd exploded, and someone roared, Zhao Wenjing really doesn't have to face. He is playing with his own body, and he wants to give Lin Hao. Another young man shouted with his fist, Lin Hao, we are not afraid. Fuck this old guy to the end. Lin Hao saw this and knew that the opportunity was coming. He stood at a high place, holding the manuscript in his hand, and said loudly, Brothers and sisters, everyone has seen clearly today. Who is harming people, who is protecting us, and there are so many in his heart. Zhao Wenqing wanted to suppress our voices, but we didn't let him be as willing. Today, I will read a new story for everyone, called Storm Yuan, and hear how our young people turned over. Speaking, he began to read it with powerful sounds, and every sentence was like a knife. The young people in the story were so pressured that they couldn't breathe, but they were dissatisfied and the group was tied up and smashed the shackles of the old world. The situation was ups and downs, and many people in the crowd were red in their eyes. Some people couldn't help but shout, Yes. That's what we should do, who shouldn't want to step on us? After reading the first volume, a thunderous sound broke out on the square, and the atmosphere was so hot that it was about to burn. Lin Hao looked at this scene and knew in his heart that he had won this battle. Zhao Wenqing's slander was exposed by the audience, and his reputation was exaggerated because of this work. Innumerable people regarded him as a spiritual leader and vowed to follow him to the end. But just as the crowd dispersed, a dark shadow stood at the corner of the street, watching everything coldly. He murmured in a low voice, Lin Hao, do you think this is over? What a surprise, it's still in the back. After speaking, he turned around and disappeared into the night, leaving behind a still boiling sound on the square, as if indicating that a bigger storm was about to come. The night wind on the square was still full of heat during the day. Lin Hao stood at a high place, and the manuscript in his hand was soaked in sweat. Just after reading the first volume of Storm Yuan, the sound of the ears was still heard. The crowd's cry was like waves, one after another, and it never dispersed for a long time. His heart was beating fast, and he looked at the young people below with their faces full of excitement, and some even shouted to break the old shackles and locks. He knew that the fire of this battle had finally burned, and no one could hold it. But Lin Hao also knew that Zhao Wenjing would not be able to understand this. Today, the drama of this drama was exposed by the public, and it was undoubtedly a slap in the old fox on the face, but with his personality, he would definitely be slapped in a desperate situation to make a more ruthless one. He lowered his head and glanced at the crowd. Seeing Zhang Ji still besieging the gangsters who were placing a few troublesome things, Lima shouted, "Iron, please be optimistic about people, don't let them run away. This is a proof, we have to keep it." Zhang Ji grinned and patted his chest. "Don't worry, Haozi, these guys can't escape. I want to see what kind of flowers Zhao Wenqing can do." As he said, he was holding a gangster in one hand, like a chicken, and dragged the person directly to the side of the field, and found a few young guys to help guard him. Lin Hao pointed at the head and shouted to the crowd, "Brothers and sisters, everyone has seen what happened today. Some people want to mess with me and suppress our voices, but they miscalculated. We are not afraid. In the next few days, we will have new songs and new stories. Who should not want to hold us? 3 days later, I will continue to read Storm Yuan to everyone to listen to. Let's make this storm more prosperous together." After the crowd heard it, Lima burst out a bigger cry, and someone shouted directly, "Lin Hao, let's get along with you. We'll come in 3 days. Who dares to smash the field? Let's fight with him." That aura was about to overturn the sky. But just as Lin Hao was about to leave, Mr. Su came from behind the crowd. His face was a little solemn, and he said in a low voice, "Boy, don't be too happy. Today I won this, but that old man Zhao Wenqing is not a fuel-efficient light. I heard that he has contacted him. Several old-fashioned men plan to use the power of the government to directly use the power of the government at the gathering 3 days later, and to open the judgment, which will ultimately destroy your reputation. You have to prepare early, this is the last battle." After Lin Hao finished listening, his eyebrows were waving, but there was not much panic in his heart, but instead he ignited a desire to fight. He sneered, "Want to catch me? Okay, I want to see how many brains he has, dare to play this trick with such many people. Mr. Su, don't worry, I've been rumored out in the past 3 days, and then I will make some new styles and block their mouths directly." Mr. Su was a little bit and patted Lin Hao on the shoulder. "Good boy, if you have such a slut, we are not afraid of them. Remember, this battle is not only for yourself, but also for these young people, for the new atmosphere on our land. Don't let them down." Lin Hao looked at Mr. Su after leaving. He returned home and buried his head in his head to write. He flipped through the old ancient book and found a page of content that wrote public speech, which mentioned a way of expressing people's hearts in an instant. In combination with stories and music, the emotions of the audience can explode directly. His eyes lit up, and his brain had an idea. In 3 days, he would not only read the story, but also come to a lecture, directly grasp the young people's hearts, and then he would dig out the crimes of Zhao Wenqing, making him unable to turn over. In the next 3 days, Lin Hao almost didn't sleep much. He spent the day painting and singing in the market to calm people's hearts. At night, he hid at home to write the subsequent plot of Storm Yuan and prepared a speech. Zhang Tai, carrying several young men, heard the news everywhere, and he heard the voice, saying that Zhao Wenyi had joined forces with several old-fashioned tyrants, and even bought the government. He was preparing to arrest people directly on the day of the gathering party. He also planned to characterize Lin Hao's songs and works as inciting rebellion and incite him to a place of robbery. "Haozi, this helping the old man is so poisonous. Even the government has brought in. What should we do?" Zhang Ji felt worried and told Lin Hao all the news he heard. After Lin Hao finished hearing this, he smiled and said, "Poison? No matter how poisonous it is, you have to have real skills. Iron, don't worry, the more anxious they are, the more they are afraid. On the day of the party, you bring a few brothers to watch the scene, don't let their people be rude, and hand the rest to me. 3 days passed in a flash. On the day of the gathering, the venue was crowded with people, and it was more popular than ever before. Young people came from all corners of the town, and even the surrounding villages and towns heard the sound and came to watch it. In the middle of the building, Lin Hao was wearing a coarse cloth dress, holding a thick manuscript in his hand, standing on a platform that was temporarily built, with the old guitar next to it, and the air was as strong as if it could suppress the entire venue. Brothers and sisters, today is our last battle. Lin Hao opened his mouth, and his voice brought unquestionable force, which instantly attracted the attention of the whole audience. In the past few days, some people want to suppress our voices, some people want to use dirty means to make me smelly, and even want to use the government to strangle our hopes to death. But I, Lin Hao, told you, we are not afraid. Today, we will use our voices to tell them who is the future of this land. As soon as this happened, the crowd below rose up and someone shouted, Lin Hao, good words. We are not afraid of them. There was also a young man holding his fist and excitedly said, who dares to move you, let's fight him. At this moment, a sudden hurried horsehoof sound came from the side of the building, and dozens of people wearing government uniforms rushed in, and Zhao Wenjing was the leader. Today he was wearing a long dark blue robe, a square hat, and a cold smile on his face. He followed several old men from the old men and headed straight to the platform. Lin Hao, what a big fool! Openly incite the people to disturb the customs and defeat the customs. Today, I will take you down by the government's order. Zhao Wenjing opened his voice with a loud voice, deliberately letting everyone on the scene hear it. Several officials beside him pulled out their swords and wanted to come forward to arrest people. When the crowd saw this, they were always in a group. Some people were afraid to retreat, but more young people stood up, stood in front of the platform, and roared, why are you catching people? What did Lin Hao say wrong? If you have the ability, you will catch us all. Zhang Qi jumped directly to the stage, held his chest with his hands, stared at Zhao Wenqing's helping others, and showed a sense of ruthlessness. If you want to move my brother, please leave me alone first. Zhao Wenjing saw the situation and his face changed slightly, but he quickly sneered, let the official stop, and turned his head to the crowd, everyone, Lin Hao is just a sour book student. With several songs and stories, he wants to overturn our traditions and incite you to resist order. If you don't catch such a person, can you still keep harming people? Today, I, Zhao Wenjing, are trying to eliminate the harm for the people, don't be deceived by him. This speech was very high-sounding, but no young people in the crowd bought a fortune. Someone shouted directly, eliminate the harm of the people? Bah! You are just afraid that Lin Hao will destroy your position. Everyone has heard about your dirty things, so why do you still have a good person to wear? Some young man shook the comics and roared, Lin Hao's story makes us know that even a weak person can turn over. Why don't you say that this will harm people? Zhao Wenjing didn't expect the excitement of the crowd, and her face became difficult to look. I just wanted to say something else. Lin Hao suddenly opened his mouth and his voice was as cold as a knife, old Zhao, don't rush to put on his hat. Everyone is watching this scene today. You said I am harming people, so I want to ask, who was the instructor of those who were in charge of the people who were doing things in the market a few days ago? Also, in recent years, you have used the names of the bookshops and floors to suppress the talents of many years of young people and force them to follow your rules. Isn't this harmful? Speaking, Lin Hao swept his hand and Zhang Zilima robbed the arrested victims and asked, who gave you silver to make you smash the field? Those few people had been shocked by Zhang Hai and trembled, yes, it's people from Zhao Mansion who gave us 5 or 2 silver pieces each, making us feel bad, and said that after the matter was completed, the whole place was stunned, and someone directly shouted, Zhao Wenjing, do you still say that you should eliminate harm to the people? You are playing with me, and you want to give Lin Hao, you are so angry. Zhao Wenqing's face turned pale in an instant, and cold sweat broke out on his head, and he said with great suffocation, you sprayed blood. How could I do this? This is clearly the person Lin Hao bought, deliberately framed me. But he didn't even hear this, and the crowd below began to slap his stone head and the vegetable leaves at him, and he was filled with sounds. Lin Hao sneered and continued, "Old Lao Zhao, do you still want to make a fool of yourself? Everyone sees your crimes. Over the years, you have relied on your power to suppress the young people's ideas and force everyone to follow your old rules. But the times have changed. What we young people want is freedom and their own voice. Can you hold on? Today, I will tell you, no one can hold on." After speaking, he picked up the guitar, sang the strings of the piano, and sang Burning Youth with his voice. The sound was rough and powerful, and instantly ignited the whole scene's emotions. The young man sang along with him, and his voice became louder and louder, as if he was shaking the entire venue. Zhao Wenjing and the old-fashioned masters stood outside the crowd, and they could not see the most important thing on their faces, and they didn't dare to say anything else. After singing a song, Lin Hao put down the guitar, picked up the manuscript, and said loudly, "Brothers and sisters, today I will give you the follow-up of the legend of the Condor Heroes to see how those young people smashed the old shackles. Our future is not something that people like Zhao Wenqing can decide, but we fight for ourselves." As he said, he began to read it out loud, and each sentence seemed to be repeated, hitting Zhao Wenqing's heart. After reading the story, the sound of thunderous sound burst out on the whole scene, and the atmosphere was as hot as if it was burning. Zhao Wenjing finally couldn't help but leave with several old men and officials, and didn't even dare to go back. When the young people on the scene saw this, they even shouted even more. Someone shouted directly, "Lin Hao, awesome. This old guy finally fell into trouble, we won." But Lin Hao knew that this was not finished yet. He stood in the middle of the platform and rushed into the crowd and shouted, "Brothers and sisters, we won today, but this is just the beginning. Next, I will spread our songs, stories, and new ideas to every corner of the country, so that more people can't help but know that the voices of young people." Zhao Wenqing fell down, but there are many people like him, and we have to continue fighting until this land has finally changed. This speech was so hot that the blood was boiling. The crowd below responded, and someone shouted, "Lin Hao, take us to fuck you. Let's go with you." Zhang Qi stood in the audience, wiped his sweat, and gave Lin Hao a thumbs up. "Haozi, you can do it. You have been dealt with by you, haha." Mr. Su also came from the crowd and said with a smile, "Boy, you're pretty." Today's battle not only defeated Zhao Wenqing, but also made young people across the country see hope. Your new culture has become stable, and the next time, it's time for you to take the lead and change the whole era. A few days later, Zhao Wenqing's reputation became very bad. Other bigwigs of the old-fashioned faction were inconsistent and kept quiet and dared not openly to challenge them. Lin Hao's songs, comics and stories were quickly spread throughout the country like wildfire. Young people in every small town and village began to hum the Burning Youth and the Blade of Indomitable and the Storm. His name has become the magazine of the new era. When many people mention him, they will say, "That is the legend of getting up from the bottom, and no one can hold it back." Those who once looked down on Lin Hao, like the noble young men like Li Yao, can only walk away with their heads down. The original ridicule has long turned into regret and fear. Every time Lin Hao passes by the market, he hears someone discussing Li Yao's attitude, and he can't help laughing. The atmosphere in his heart that had been held back for many years finally came out. In the evening, Lin Hao, carrying Zhang Hai and a few young followers, stood on a high slope outside the small town, looking at the sunny far away. The wind blew over and brought a refreshing feeling. He took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "Iron, brothers, our road is still long. There are so many places in the country, and we are still waiting for us to get a fire. In the future, we will have to let everyone be able to be human, and who should not step on us again." Zhang Qi grinned and patted Lin Hao on the shoulder. "Haozi, with you here, we are not afraid of anything. Let's go, let's fuck each other together and burn this wind to the sky." After hearing this, young people ate their heads and faces were full of struggle. Under the sunset, Lin Hao's back looked particularly tall, like the first light of the new era, illuminating this land that had been silent for too long. The war has been extinguished, but the new legend has just begun.